Nobody came to my graduation. Not a single familiar face in the crowd when my name echoed through the speakers. The row marked for family stayed empty and shining under the sun. I smiled for the photo anyway, pretending it didn't burn. 3 days later, my mom texted, "Need 2,100 for your sister's sweet 16. No congrats." No, how is it just numbers? So I sent $1 with a note that said congrats and changed the locks. The day that was supposed to make me feel seen became another reminder of absence. The stadium glittered under May light, filled with navy gowns and parents waving cameras while my section sat hollow. I looked up when they said my name, Camila Reed, Master of Data Analytics. But the only thing waiting was silence. I held the diploma tight, forcing a smile while strangers laughed and hugged around me. My classmate Ruby found me beaming with pride. Her family snapping photos, asking where mine were. I lied easily, saying they were late, because lying had always been easier than explaining when I reached the parking lot. The sky was turning gold, and families were leaving balloons floating above cars. I sat in my old Civic imagining my mom and dad walking toward me with flowers. But the vision vanished with the sound of engines deep down. I knew I shouldn't be surprised they skipped my college graduation too. Mom said Avery had exams. Dad didn't even call. I'd spent my teenage years earning affection, like it was a paycheck working 2 jobs sending money home. Believing love sounded like gratitude when it really meant obligation. I thought this degree would change everything, that maybe achievement could finally make me enough. But 3 days later, her text proved I was still just a bank account. With a heartbeat, I stared at those numbers until my phone dimmed and something inside me hardened. I opened my banking app, saw barely 3,000 left, and sent that single dollar. Then I took the spare key she kept for emergencies, dropped it in the trash, and called a locksmith. The click of the new lock was louder than any applause the next morning. Sunlight filled my small apartment, and for once the silence felt like mine. Until the knocking started when I looked through the peephole. 2 officers stood outside, calm and professional, saying my mother called, claiming I'd been acting unstable. Changing locks, not answering her. They checked the apartment, spotless laptop, open diploma framed. I told them I was fine, just setting boundaries. One officer smiled slightly, saying sometimes when people start standing up for themselves, others panic when they left. I realized she hadn't just crossed a line. She'd declared war on it that night. I sat with the police report glowing on my screen, replaying every guilt trip, every text about family helping family the next morning. I woke early, brewed coffee, and checked my bank account again, only to find 2 new credit inquiries. Capital One and Discover both opened with my name, but using their address charges for venues, DJs, and makeup studios. My stomach dropped, remembering her text about the Sweet 16. I called the bank, and the agent confirmed it had been opened in person by Linda M. Reed. My mother, I recorded the next call legally asking why she did it, and she said she was building my credit by paying for my sister's party. I told her what's mine is mine and what's yours is now under investigation. I saved the recording labeled "It Boundaries." May 17th, 2025, and looked at the new lock shining in the morning light. It wasn't just a door anymore. It was proof that this time I wasn't letting anyone walk through without earning the right to. A week later, I agreed to meet them in a diner halfway between their house and my sanity, the kind of place with cracked red booths and burnt coffee that never ran out. My mother arrived first, wearing sunglasses like armor, with my father trailing behind, and Avery glued to her phone. She sat across from me, her voice sharp, asking why I made them drive all this way. Told her we're not eating, we're talking when the waitress left. I slid a folder across the table. 2 credit cards opened under my name. Capital One and Discover both tied to your address. Both used for Avery's Sweet 16 mom, smiled like she'd rehearsed it, saying, "I did that for you, honey." Building your credit, I said you forged my signature, and she waved her hand, saying, "Don't be dramatic. It's family. You're so ungrateful. Do you think the world doesn't know who paid for your education?" I laughed because the truth tasted bitter. I paid for it with every double shift, every loan, every time you said Avery needed more. Avery rolled her eyes, saying, "Here we go again," and I turned to her, saying that silver dress you wore was charged to my name. "Enjoy it," Mom snapped. "Enough. You don't talk to your sister like that. I didn't steal. I borrowed. You used my identity," I said quietly. "You sent cops to my door and called it love that ends today." Dad spoke softly, saying, "Sweetheart, let's not blow this up. Your mother got carried away." I pushed the folder closer and told them the bank already knows there's a fraud case open. Mom's face drained white as I said, "They have your signature, your phone number, your address. You'll hear from them soon." The silence in that diner was so thick, even the hum of the lights seemed to hold its breath. She whispered, "You'll regret this. You're destroying the family." "No. I said you did that the moment my name became your currency." I left cash for the coffee and walked out before she could answer. Outside, the air smelled like rain, and my reflection in the car window looked like someone I was finally starting to recognize that night while Avery's party glittered across town. My phone rang an unknown number. The bank's investigator saying law enforcement was verifying charges live at the venue. I sat in silence, hearing faint music from downtown, knowing exactly what was happening. 40 minutes later, Avery texted, "Are you insane? The police just showed up. Everyone's staring. Mom's freaking out." Then, another. They said, "Your name. What did you do?" I didn't reply across town. Officers entered the glowing hall, calm and professional, explaining they were there to confirm a fraud report linked to an account under Camila Reed. Whispers filled the room as the banker read the documents. Primary applicant Linda M. Reed. Co-signer unauthorized. Gasps rippled, and someone murmured, "Isn't that her daughter's name?" Mom froze near the cake table, color draining from her face. Avery whispering, "Mom, what did you do?" Cameras flashed, capturing the moment the music died. The banner that said Avery's Sweet 16, drooping under the heat of the lights. By the time the guests left, rain was falling steady and cold back in my apartment. I stood by the window watching lightning crawl across the city, and for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. It was the sound of justice, soft, certain, and mine 3 days after the storm. Everything settled, but the wreckage stayed behind. An email from the bank arrived saying the investigation was closed, and the primary applicant, Linda M. Reed, had admitted unauthorized use and agreed to repay the full amount. No apology, just a sentence that finally put truth on record. Gossip spread fast across Littleton, whispers in grocery aisles and church parking lots saying, "Did you hear about the Reeds? Something about fraud," and a Sweet 16 Avery's party video hit 500,000 views before she locked her account. My father got a quiet reprimand at work for mixing company mail with personal bills. For once, I didn't feel guilty. I ignored every text, every attempt to rewrite the story, not out of hate, but exhaustion. I filled out the FTC reports, froze my credit, closed every account my mother ever touched, printed the confirmation letter, and pinned it beside my framed diploma and the locksmith's receipt. 3 small pieces of paper that together told one truth. Proof of effort, proof of boundaries, proof of freedom that night. I brewed tea and opened my window, letting Denver's night air roll through the city, hummed outside alive and indifferent, and for the first time the silence didn't ache. It healed 6 months later. Autumn painted the streets in gold, and I started my new job at Nova Data Labs, surrounded by people who saw me for what I built, not what I could give. On my wall hung 3 things: my diploma, my employee badge, and the old replaced lock together. They reminded me that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. And if you've ever had to shut a door just to breathe again, know you're not alone. Somewhere out there, someone else is changing their locks too, and calling it freedom. By the time winter gave way to spring, the chaos had faded into quiet clarity, and I'd learned that peace wasn't something you found. It was something you built brick by brick, boundary by boundary. My mother never apologized, but I stopped needing her to the law. Handled the rest, while I handled myself. I moved to a new apartment with light that poured through the windows every morning and reminded me I was free. The old lock hung on my wall beside my framed diploma, like a relic from another life. I'd started sleeping better too. No more waiting for calls that came only when someone wanted something. Instead, my days filled with work at Nova Data Labs, where my worth wasn't measured in money. Sent home, but in what I created. Sometimes I'd walk past a campus or see a graduation photo online and feel a small ache, but it wasn't grief anymore. It was distance proof that I'd made it out. I still brewed my morning coffee the same way, stirring until the steam blurred my reflection in the window, thinking about how far I'd come from that girl sitting alone in the parking lot, clutching her diploma now. When silence fills the room, it doesn't feel empty. It feels earned, because this time it belongs to me, and me alone. If you've ever had to choose yourself over family just to breathe again, remember this: peace isn't selfish, it's survival. And sometimes the loudest way to take your life back is simply to close the door. Turn the key and let the world know you've changed the locks. A year later, the noise around my family faded into background static, and my life became quiet in the best way. I woke each morning to sunlight spilling across my kitchen table onto my framed diploma and the old brass lock that started it all. Sometimes I still caught myself thinking about that graduation stage, about the empty row where love was supposed to sit, and realized that emptiness had given me space to build something real. I no longer needed their approval to feel worthy, or their chaos to feel connected. The peace I had now wasn't luck. It was labor. Every boundary, a brick, every no. A wall strong enough to stand on. I learned that cutting ties doesn't mean hate. It means hope that someday you'll stop bleeding for people who never noticed you were hurt. My mother still lives in the same house with curtains always drawn, neighbors whispering, but I don't check anymore. I've made new memories, new friends, new family built from choice, not blood, and on quiet evenings when the city hums beneath my window, I remind myself that the girl they left behind at graduation didn't disappear. She evolved because nobody showing up became the moment I finally did. And if you've ever had to walk away from people who made you feel small, remember this peace isn't given, it's earned. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is send $1, say congrats, and change the locks. It's been 2 years since the day my name echoed across that empty stadium, and I finally understand that loneliness can be the beginning of freedom. The silence I once feared became my sanctuary. The sound of peace shaped by boundaries and hard decisions. Sometimes I still get the urge to check my phone, expecting her name to flash on the screen. But it never does, and that's okay. Healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering without reopening the wound. I've built a life that doesn't require permission to exist, where love is earned, not owed, and quiet feels like safety, not punishment. The world outside my window hums with its own rhythm. People rushing, chasing something I used to think I needed too, but I already have it. Stillness space, a lock that clicks shut when I say no. And for the first time that no feels like a yes to myself. If you've ever sat in an empty crowd waiting for someone who never came, just know. This one day you'll stop waiting and start living. And the moment you do that, silence won't hurt anymore. It will sound like freedom.